My name is Monica Gleberman, and you're listening to Silence on Set podcast. On today's podcast, we're talking to the cast of We Were the Lucky Ones. We Were the Lucky Ones is based on Georgia Hunter's New York Times bestselling novel and is a limited series inspired by the incredible true story of one Jewish family separated at the start of World War II. The series follows them across continents as they do everything in their power to survive and to reunite. We Were the Lucky Ones demonstrates how in the face of the 20th century's darkest moment, the human spirit can endure and even thrive. The series is a tribute to the triumph of hope and love against all odds. So to talk about this upcoming adaptation, first up is Hadas Yaron and Michael Oloni.
I want to ask both of you, this is such an emotionally hard show, and I have family that I have lost, so I was crying, in every single episode. So I want to know for you guys, how were you able to get through it, and what was the most important thing for each of you to really emphasize for your characters and for the season?
I think it's an important story to tell. As you said, everyone can relate to it, and I think it's a great reminder. The title of the show, We Were the Lucky Ones, is also a great reminder of those who weren't lucky. And I think what makes it so special, it's a story about the Holocaust, but it's a story about the family that goes through the Holocaust and about the human relationships between the two of them, about the bond that was created between the cast members even. So it's a story about love and hope and the longing and the will to be reunited all over again. And I think that's something that kept us even through the filming, just missing each other because we filmed part of our scenes and part of our storylines separately as the story goes, because we started one being a happy family, and then we were sent off different directions and different terrible stories that we need to go through, and all of a sudden you go through that alone, and then you're just like, but where's Hadas? I miss Hadas, and I want to see Henry again, and all those things. It's like, it's the realness of it that made it even possible, or even more, I guess, enjoyable when you have your cast members and the people that you enjoyed working with you.
When you have people you love next to you, that's all you need. That was very, very helpful to have that. Yeah, for sure.
So should I go?
Yeah, if you don't mind switching with someone I really do care about and not like
Joey!
Just a random guy.
Oh, nothing's been learned at all. Was it hard to adapt this material? Because I watched all of it, and I don't want to give anything away, but I was crying. Episode after episode. And this is just stories I've heard in my own family, from years. And so was it hard for both of you to try to keep it together and show and honor these people?
Absolutely. I think it's a real life story. So when you tell a story about a real person, you want to really give the respect, and it's a very important mission to portray someone who lived through this terror. Every moment was really important to bring it as close as possible to the truth.
Yeah, but I think we all have very innate natural respect to this story. We all have families that went through this. This is in our DNA. This is my story. This is your story. By the way, even if we did a story about a different tragic event that happened, you always have respect for that. But something about the fact that it's something we all went through, or we all know that my mom or my grandmother went through, it makes it really important to you. There were moments when it was hard just because you're like, I can't believe this really happened. But at the same time, you also feel lucky to be alive, to not exist in that time in history, and to tell this story. But yeah.
Next up is Robin Weigert.
Why this material, it's really close to my heart in particular with my background and what happened with my family. So why was this so important for you to be a part of? And what are you hoping the message gets out when people watch it?
I think the deepest answer I could give to that question has to do with what I think the nature of love is. So are you ready for this?
Yes.
I love love.
You love love. Well, I think of love as being highly specific. And I think this form of storytelling was incredibly, incredibly specific. Each character is so well drawn. And hate seems incredibly general to me. You hate people in terms of large categories of who those people are and what you don't like about those people. And the gift of the show is that it shows people so specifically. I think of it as an act of love, not just that we all loved each other, which we did in the cast, but that the very way in which this was made with such a care and attention to detail was also an act of love. And I think it's so important to make things just this way right now, to tell stories in this way. I think good storytelling is an engine of empathy and allows a willing audience member to step into someone else's shoes and take a journey with them. And one of the things I love most about this particular story and the way it's told is that for the younger generation, it's a coming of age story. You watch kids, I call them kids, at 23 and 27 and really relatable ages like that, confronted with unbelievable obstacles right at the time that they're first falling madly in love, first finding their way to a career, first. And they grow tremendously from episode 1 through episode 8. So this is something I value so highly about what we've made, and a huge credit to the way it was directed by Thomas Kail and Amit Gupta and Nessa Hardiman, and a huge credit to the way it was conceived by all three, Georgia and Erica and Tommy, and then Erica's writing of the script, the way it honors George's book, and the way it, through incredible dialogue, just allowed us all to enter these extremely distinct people and track their journeys with them. And so it was a gift of an experience altogether. And I, like you, have this background. In fact, I think part of how they chose the cast was that we shared this kind of background. And we were given a week of table work before we began to shoot the series, and discovered so much in common with one another, even though we were from 3 different continents. And that was a beautiful part of the experience for me. It's that feeling of commonality, of shared experience, in spite of our differences. Yes.
Here's Georgia Hunter.
My first question was, I know that this all kind of spurred from you wanting to find out more about your family. So can you tell me a little bit about the process of making the book and then how the adaptation came about?
Yeah, sure. So this is all based on my grandfather's story, which I learned about when I was 15, actually. I grew up close with him in a little town in Massachusetts, but he never talked about his Holocaust era past. He died when I was 14, and the following year, a high school English teacher said, "Hey, give us an assignment, go out and interview a relative and learn a little bit about your roots." So I sat down with my grandmother, Caroline, and it was over the course of that interview that his story came to light. I had a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity, and got a few answers about 5 years later at a family reunion. Logan Lerman plays Addie Kortz, who is my grandfather, my mother's father. She's one of 10 first cousins. She invited them all. And I remember sitting around a picnic table one night and hearing stories that were unlike any I'd ever heard before, like a baby born in Siberia and a hike over the Austrian Alps and a disguised circumcision and an escape from the ghetto. And I think that's when I realized someone needs to write them down. And 8 years later, I got the courage to say that someone would be me. And I set off to unearth and record the family's story. And that involved flying all around the world to interview relatives and traveling in their footsteps and uncovering records from archives and pulling it all together. And yeah, the book came out in 2017. And then my friend Tommy, who optioned it, called me up and said, "Hey, how about we try to bring this to the screen together?" And to be able to work with a dear friend and someone who's phenomenally talented to boot felt like a dream come true. And like Tommy likes to say, we pushed the rock up the hill and here we are.
What was the process like seeing your book come to life, your family come to life, the casting? Just like talk to me a little bit about what that process was like. Because for me watching it, I'm like crying every episode. I read your book, when it came out. I cried when I read your book, but I'm like really invested because it's so different. Books have their own medium that I love, but then visually when you see it, it has its own medium so there's just different connections. So I have a special connection to the book and then a special one to the show. So what was it like for you adapting that and seeing it all come to life, seeing your family? I mean, and then what they have to go through to try to survive.
It was like the full spectrum of emotions, but I cried a lot at the sadness of it, at the beauty of it, at the happy moments. Honestly, now when I watch episodes, the happy moments hit me the hardest. But in general, it was just the most surreal experience to have taken something that I'd only ever imagined or seen in these black and white and sepia tone photographs and watch it come to life through the performances of this incredibly talented, committed cast to just over and over again the storyline to me. And we worked so long and hard together even before we began shooting, providing stories and photographs and documents and resources for them to, in their words, just do the story justice. And that was the refrain actually from everybody involved was, the gratitude for me trusting it in their hands and how they were just so committed to bringing it to life in the most true way possible. And so I think we've accomplished that. And I am so proud of what we've made. It's been an incredibly emotional journey. I feel closer to my ancestors than I ever have. I feel honored to be telling their story in this way. And I'm really excited that my kids and their kids and so on will have this other medium and a way to tell this story and to receive it visually, which, like you said, it's very different from reading words on a page. But I really am so proud of what we've made.
And finally, here's Erica Lipez and Thomas Kail.
I wanted to ask both of you, obviously you, Thomas, you directed episodes. Erica, you wrote a ton of stuff for the episodes. Was it hard to take on this material? Because I would have been so nervous, and then trying to adapt it for television to make it as authentic as possible.
To answer your question, yes, it was daunting. But I think for me, when I read Georgia's book, it had everything that I've ever wanted to do as a writer, to have the chance to tell a story like this, a true story, a story that I felt like connected to my own background as a Jewish woman and my own family. And I also I think I'm a very character driven writer, and I fell in love with this family so deeply to sort of get to tell a series of this scope and scale, but through such an intimate lens, and such a human lens that was about, I know it takes place during this really intense period of time, but the story is so much about these siblings, these parents in this time of life where they're all finding themselves, they're forming those romantic connections, they're figuring out their relationships as parent to child, siblings. And I think there was so much to relate to and to draw from. And so I think for myself and the other writers, it just felt like really rich territory. And we just took it one step at a time. We found our way through.
And Thomas, for you, there are so many scenes that you directed that were close-ups. And sometimes there was there's one scene in particular where, I'm not sure if it was your episode or not, but I just loved the direction that was so cohesive throughout the show, where I don't want to give anything away, but it's kind of like Joey King's character comes, close up with somebody. And it was like facial expressions to show like how one person views another person and how outrageous that could be, with you guys staring right at each other and almost like, they're not human and there's no heart there. So for direction, was that really hard for you to direct these episodes and make sure that the ones that you had were not only in tone, but also showing kind of the humanity and then lack of humanity, like balancing that out in every episode?
Because we were focusing on this family, we know that they were our portals in. So when you have a group of actors that are as adept with language, you know that they can do it with the text. And then there's also going to be, due to the beauty of this form and this medium, the ability to take language away and just let the eyes say it. And Joey certainly has that. And his entire company, you could put a camera on Lior's face and he could tell the whole story without any language. And a lot of times what you're doing through the process of editing is taking away some of the stuff you thought you needed and realizing, oh, we did it with that look. This large idea we were trying to communicate was done in this gesture and this physical behavior. And as they got deeper into their characters, we were able to, in many ways, learn through the process of editing, which has been over these last months, what was necessary to tell the story and make sure that we were always moving that story forward, and to trust the actor, to trust their ability in a moment of a close-up to deliver what we needed and know that it was going to reach everyone that was witnessing it.
Hope you guys enjoyed listening to the cast of We Were the Lucky Ones. The show will premiere on Hulu in the United States on March 28th, 2024. So make sure you head over there and check it out. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you're updated on all of our latest podcasts, and head over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe so you're updated on all of our video content.